All right, the national leadership of the ruling All Progressives Congress has announced reports alleging that the Kogi State Governor Yahaya Bello of working at cross purposes with its presidential campaign council to frustrate the chances of its presidential candidate, Asiwaju Bola Tinubu. National Publicity Secretary of the party, Felix Morka, says the report is patently false and irresponsible. A media report had alleged that Bello had tactically withdrawn support for Tinubu over fears that should the latter win the presidency, he would seek to install his protege and secretary of the PCC, James Faleke, as Bello's successor in the November governorship election.
The Northwest Zonal Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Salihu Lukman, has denied reports that it is working for the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi. In a statement released in Abuja on Sunday, Lukman says it will be absurd for anyone to believe that he will abandon the APC and work for the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi. The development is coming barely 24 hours after a director in the Tinubu-Shetima Presidential Campaign Council, Najatu Muhammad, quit the team and the ruling party.
Okay, and after all the political stories now, we have in the studio a Rise analyst, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi, to discuss some of these developments. Prof, very warm welcome to Newsnight, like always.
Thank you, good evening.
Let's start with the brickbats between the PDP and the APC about their presidential candidates, one criminal infraction or the other, and they've now taken it upon themselves. In fact, Festus Keyamo, one of the spokesmen of the APC Presidential Council, is approached the courts already. And the replies from the spokesmen of Atiku presidential campaign is very copious here. But the question is, why the brickbat? Is this what Nigerians bargain for?
Well, sometimes, Christian, sometimes you cannot avoid broad sides, mudslingings like these in a political campaign, that we ordinarily expect that, was going to get heated as it is becoming now. But I thought that after the peace meeting on Friday, that the parties, the two major parties particularly, will have sheathed their daggers and probably return to the issues like they've been doing at some points in the past, where they'll be reminding us of the problems that we have and the solutions they have to it, and they have to resolve it. I thought we'll get to that stage. But again, sometimes you want to also put the PDP reaction in context. Maybe they are trying to even a score. The APC was probably fired the first shot, and they thought maybe they too have their own shot to fire. That's why they are countering. But I'm still wondering where these attacks and counterattacks will take us to. The only thing that could happen in the circumstance is for Labour Party, to probably cash in on it, find a way to cash in on the continuous disagreement between the behemoths and see how they can leverage on it, take advantage of it, and of course gratifying as well that we saw the Labour Party presidential candidate from the flow of your story, providing a kind of succor, speaking to the issues bedeviling us in some parts of the north, and how he was going to go about tackling it. Yeah, that's what I think. That's a trend I think we should rather follow, and maybe call on the principals in the case of the PDP and the APC, to rein in on their lieutenants, otherwise brilliant people. No doubt, some of them are accomplished. Yes.
Is that an indictment on you?
Otherwise they are brilliant, despite the brickbats.
Otherwise, brilliant people, sometimes many of them are accomplished professionals. Right. But of course, coming into politics, we know how the tone can be sometimes. And of course, it's degenerating, which is actually unsalutary and not good for our temperament, for our emotions, because it is very, very draining. That's not what we expect. If at their level, there can be some level of moderation and exchange. What about the level that is a little downwards? The level of people who are
just before you come in, I just want to ask,
can misunderstand these things and probably resort to fisticuffs.
Prof,
violence
and these crisis are quite distracting, to the main issues confronting Nigerians. You know, the issue of the economy, how to better the infrastructural development, how to lift Nigerians out of poverty. Over 100 million Nigerians. Quite distracting, and, you know, carpeting the main issues under.
Well, we are human beings, Christian. We need to understand that as well. Sometimes when you have a responsibility to perform, they've been given roles to play, and of course they want to do their best. They don't want to be seen as faltering in discharge of those duties. And part of the thing that they probably need to do is to respond to any attack coming from the other side. And probably in responding also, of course, they probably lost that fact that they are charging the atmosphere. You know, they are creating an atmosphere of ill temper where the populace is becoming much more concerned, right. You know, thinking that they are deviating from the main issue. And what are these issues? Insecurity, economy on a tailspin.
Well, don't tell you that's why they are on the campaign trail, and we're seeing all of these promises being made by the politicians. But I want to still stay with a spokesperson of campaign councils. During the course of 1 week, the People's Democratic Party held 3 briefings. It started with the National Publicity Secretary of the party really also calling on the EFCC to go after Asiwaju. Then he went to Kola Ologbodiyan, one of the spokespersons of the Presidential Campaign Council. And today, again, 3 of them, Daniel Bwala, Dele Momodu, Head of Strategic Communications, and of course, Frank Schreiber, they're all seated. But at the end of the day, what we're seeing is threats of litigation, nothing yet in that direction. But my own concern about this entire thing is, what should the electorate who are preparing to go to the polls be making of this? And do you think all of this will have any sort of impact on how the voters?
Yeah, for me, I don't think the electorate will be too bothered about some of these exchanges, some of these broadsides, really, because, like we argue sometimes, they probably have made up their minds largely. And no matter the level of insult that they haul at themselves, it may not help anyone to change their mind at this time. Do not forget our voting patterns, you know, our voting predilections. You know, we sometimes, they are sometimes determined by some primordial sentiments. Where is he from? What kind of network does he have? What is his structure? What about resources? How is it going to help me with logistics, you know, at the time of voting? Those are the things that will probably determine who the electorates will vote for. I don't believe that some of these exchanges will affect you know, the pattern of voting at the end of the day. But again, we have to be concerned about, you know, a misunderstanding, misinterpretation of the exchanges at levels that are lower than those who are mouthing these things. Levels that are lower sometimes have problem with understanding. And they might just think that, you know, they might equate insult for physical attack, and they may want to react in accordance, you know, by being violent, you know, and by resorting to, you know, physical violence. And that's what shouldn't really happen.
Right.
So we can have free, fair, and credible election.
The mudslinging is not synonymous to Nigeria's election. We see it all over the world
at
the end of the day. But let's not forget, the elections are barely 4 weeks away, and we have seen the candidates really busy, from the APC to the PDP to even the Labour Party, NNPP, just to name a few. But all of them have been busy canvassing for votes all across the country. But my question to you right now, as a professor of strategic communications, how would you say the candidates have really fared in terms of getting their message across to the electorate from what you've seen in the campaign trail so far?
I think they're not doing badly. We have made this point severally. They've all come out with manifestos, some of them very robust, some of them penetrating, and some of them have also been consistent with their messages. They have also stayed on their messages, irrespective of attempts by the opponents, you know, to disparage the contents of each other's messages. So they've been very consistent. But again, of course, we are seeing detours resulting in these heated exchanges, you know, which amount to distractions. Rather than continue to stay on the message, they are being distracted. That's the unfortunate aspect of it, you know. But again, we also have to be concerned about the electorate, you know, internalizing some of these issues, you know, that they are selling to us, you know. This name calling, you know, these endless abuses, you know, and of course how it will not continue, you know. And I don't know who else can rein in the circumstance after what the peace committee did, and we're still having a continuation of the heated exchange. Who else is going to rein in? Maybe INEC, or maybe some other authority, some other individuals, civil society individuals that have been quiet in the circumstance. If they probably come in and talk to them some more, you know, we can have an atmosphere of peace and go back to the issues once more.
Well, maybe the issues are really picking up. At least we can see that with the Labour Party presidential candidate, Peter Obi, who is talking economy, is going to revive this, is going to do this, is going to stamp out corruption and what have you. But the question from Nigerians is, how is he going to do it? Corruption is gargantuan, is ingrained, you know, and it pervades the entire fabrics of the Nigerian society.
The how question is a continuous one, but we are not going to be discouraged by the fact that how still remains ambiguous. You know, it's about trial, you know, and you know, voicing a determination to deal with it. You know, it's a continuous question, and the search for the question still means that, I mean, the search for the answer to the question still means that we're focused on the solution. And if one of them is actually determined to find that solution, of course, he's probably speaking to the issue much more than the others are doing. And that's the question we're talking about. You know, fundamental questions that have bedeviled us, that have confronted us, not just, you know, in the present circumstance, but even from a post-independence period. You know, we have corruption. It's been around. You know, we've not been able to deal with it. It is systemic. You know, it is deep-seated. You know, but of course, again, it is still with us, and will probably continuing into the future. How are we going to deal with it? You know, overall, the average Nigerian knows what the problem of Nigeria is. Even the illiterate ones or the less educated one, they are aware of what the problem is. But the challenge now is to move from analysis, you know, to avoid paralysis for analysis, to solution. Right. And of course, we're expecting the aspirants to tell us the solution, but one of them is getting close. So what do we do other than to talk to the other ones that are running away from the solution, is to come back to it so that we can have an expanded scope.
They are preferring solutions. Let's give it to Atiku Abubakar. He was in Niger State, you know, just yesterday, and he did talk about the fact that insecurity will be a thing of the past in Niger State. Tinubu was in Kwara State as well, made his own promises. All of them are making the promises. So aside from the mudslinging from the spokespersons, we're seeing these candidates really out there and making promises. But at the end of the day, these promises they're making, some would say, it sounds like what we've heard in the past, maybe even in 2015 and the likes. So what would be your advice for the candidates as we push closer to D-Day? How should they be addressing the electorate to really key into the needs of this electorate to get them to vote for them on the D-Day?
Difficult question, because what more can they do other than to continue to talk to the electorate?
Yeah, are the messages, you know, at the podium really getting to the electorate?
Maybe to convince. We'll determine that after the election. But what is important is that you just stay on your message.
I thought you can profess some strategic answers.
You know, you just continue to try. You repeat yourself, and if you are repeating yourself, the populace might believe that, you know, there's truism in what you're saying. You might convince them, you know, if you repeat yourself several times over. You know, there's nothing more they can do, you know, but beyond repetition again, beyond mouthing these things, we need to see action, you know. And action can once more be measured by the pedigrees of the aspirants. What have they done in the past? You know, to what extent have they been able to have they been able to match, you know, pronouncements with reality? You know, what legacies have they left in offices they have held in the past? And that will help us make projections into their potentials, into their promises, you know, what they hold for us if they probably become president of this country. Yeah.
Good place to drop the anchor tonight. For your in-depth analysis tonight, we say thank you, Professor Abiodun Adeniyi,
I appreciate it.
Arise News analyst.